Windsor Terrace Artist Interview. I want to welcome our first guest, Susan Greenstein. She's, of course, a local artist, and she is a really, really great watercolorist. So without further ado, we're going to move ahead here. I want to ask everybody who comes in to please mute themselves, please mute yourself, and turn off your video. You'll have plenty of time to get back on. Here is Susan. Now, Susan, where do you do most of your work? Seems like you might do it outdoors. Is that true?
Yes, it is. I really love working outside. That's a real passion of mine.
That's great. And I take it you work almost entirely in Brooklyn, is that right?
No, not necessarily. Actually, this piece is from Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
But I do a lot of, and I paint wherever I travel. But I do a lot of work in Brooklyn.
Oh, that's great. Is this your typical setup?
Yeah, this is my typical setup, although I have recently ventured into having a plein air easel outside. So sometimes I use a table, sometimes I use an easel.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Always watercolor?
Yeah, I really, it's funny. Somebody asked me if I ever get tired of watercolors because I've been using them for a very long time. And my thought on that is just every time my brush hits the paper, it's still really exciting. When that fades, then I might move on to something else. I mean, I do try other things, but for plein air painting, I really love using watercolors.
That's great. I'm impressed because it's so exacting. Before we go on to the next, do you have a day job or a background that led you to this?
Yes and yes. I work at Brooklyn Friends School. I teach art to kindergartners to fourth graders. And what I love about that is that they are just always excited about art making, and they approach materials with so much freshness. Like, it's kind of like, for me, it helps me to look at materials as if I've never used them before. And
that's great.
I really like that kind of enthusiasm, and that kind of keeping things really new feeds my work as well. I mean, it certainly is just an exciting way to work with kids, but it also feeds my work and my inspiration.
Have you always been involved with art or making art, or this is not new?
No, I've been, I mean, I'd say most of my life I've really considered myself an artist. I mean, it's always been something that was really important to me. I'd say maybe around middle school, I started really thinking, I think this is the direction I'd really like to go in. And I was lucky enough to go to a high school that focused on art. And some of the friends that I made in my high school, in the High School of Art and Design, I still paint with. So it's a really nice lifelong adventure.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. All right, well, let's take a look here at the next image. Oh, here you are in your studio, which looks like, let me guess, a place to eat.
My dining room table.
All right.
I do have a studio in my basement, and I use it for some things. I use it for printmaking, sometimes clay work, different types of things. But I really love painting at my dining room table. And if you notice, there's a really big window behind me, and the light is just really, I can't turn that down,
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, good.
Really, it just makes it a great experience.
Okay, now I caught you in an inconsistency in your testimony, ma'am. That's not watercolor.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely
right. Gotcha.
So I also love to draw, and I draw a lot. I draw pretty much all the time. And I discovered this pen that I just fell in love with. It's a brush pen, and it has really dark ink in it. It just makes these beautiful lines. And so once I started working with that, it kind of led me to some series that I'll talk to you about once you
Okay.
you get to those images.
All right, cool. So what do we have here at the Museum of Natural
So
History?
yeah, so this actually started a little before the pandemic happened. I started doing. Actually, I have a friend that's on this Zoom, and she was doing a self portrait a day,
Mhm.
and I was very inspired by that. So I decided to do that, and we started exchange. We would show each other what we did every day, and I did that for I think I did about 76. I filled a book of portraits a day, and then I moved on to um, objects from museums, and then some other friends got involved. So we started. We would sort of check in with each other every day and show each other what we were doing. But working, this actually kind of blossomed once the pandemic hit because I wasn't going to any museums. And so I was looking for objects from museums from all over the world. And I was doing drawings from those. So this is
Okay.
a book of museum drawings.
Mhm. Okay. So you, well, this is a very
And
interesting.
this is a different series.
Yeah.
This was called Other People's Objects. And this really did grow out of the pandemic. I couldn't visit with anybody because it was when, things really hit and it was pretty severe. So the way that I wanted to connect with people was I would ask them to send me a photograph or a few photographs of an object that was interesting to them or that meant something to them. And this was a piece, it was a statue that my cousin Maria had, and she sent me a photograph. And so part of it was writing about it and drawing the object. And then I would make a print and send it back to the person that,
Oh,
who
yeah.
owned that object. So I mailed a lot of things during that time.
Fantastic.
But it was a really nice way of just keeping a connection going for me.
Let's see what you did with all this. Whoops, come on. No, there we go.
So these are some of them. There were about 76 of these as well.
Excuse me for just a second. For those of you who are arriving late, kindly mute yourself and turn off your video immediately. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So these were objects that were from museums all over the world, and there were I'd say about 70, 75 of these objects.
Wow.
And so sometimes I really like to just see them all together. Well, not all together, but this is a good chunk of them.
Mhm.
You kind of can get a chance to see the range of the objects that I was interested in.
Mhm. That's an absolutely huge range.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I discovered a site, I think it was called Google Arts and Culture,
Mm-hmm.
and they allow you to see things in every museum, like almost every museum around the world. There might be a few missing, but
Oh.
it was great because I got to travel from my dining room table.
Yeah.
And these are some of the objects from other people's objects, that series.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very important to me because it was a time where we were all so isolated, and I felt the need to connect to people that I always see or are people that I'm always connected to, as well as people I hadn't been in touch with for a long time.
Cool. Now, here are your watercolors. Let me guess, this is Brooklyn.
You got it. Yeah, that's the Grand Army Plaza. And one of the goals that I have is to try to get looser and looser with the way I work with watercolors.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, it's very, um, it's a beautiful medium that kind of really works so beautifully, in my opinion, when less becomes more.
Is that why you have so much white space?
The
Oh, is
white,
that white the paper? I'm pointing to it.
white, the white is the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I guess the goal is to make each mark really important,
Yeah.
and to say as much as you can with each part.
This looks almost photographic here.
This is right. This is in my neighborhood, and there aren't that many clotheslines around anymore. And the people that live here always have a clothesline up. They always have some really interesting laundry hanging. And this one I was really exciting because there were all, so many colors. So
Yeah.
this one was actually not done on site. This one was done from a photograph.
Yeah, you had to capture that. Someone asked, how big are your paintings?
Mostly they are, I think this is about 15 by 20.
Mhm.
And the other one is probably about, I think 15 by 11.
Mhm.
I think that's the,
This is interesting to me because you didn't show the storefront. Is there a reason for that?
I was just so enamored with the top and the sky, like everything. This
Mhm.
is one of those times, and I'm sure anyone that's worked outside probably understands what I'm talking about. There are just times when magic happens, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
was one of those times. I was planning on going out to paint that day, and a number of things got in the way, and then two friends that I like to paint with invited me to go out later in the day. I think it was around 4 o'clock, and the light was just golden. It was
Way to go.
absolutely beautiful. So I was much more interested in that at that
Yeah.
moment than
I see the same thing happened here.
Yes, the sky was
Yeah.
just magic.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was what this is real. That's what I was very excited
Yeah.
about. And this is the Endale Arch in Prospect Park, and it's been recently opened. They renovated it, and this was just this magnificent day in early spring. And one of the things that I was very excited about when I decided to paint this was all the different kinds of greens that were there, these
Mhm.
very like new greens,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then this little bit of pink,
Yeah.
and just how they kind of worked off of each
I
other.
like the way it's almost impressionistic, and yet you show tremendous detail on the arch.
Mm,
So you captured the lines in any case.
mm.
I know this is a favorite of yours.
Yeah, that was for years I have been, this is in Gowanus, and for years I've passed this building, and I was always really attracted to it. And this summer I had the good fortune of being part of a show in Gowanus. So I spent a lot of time there, and I just, because I was seeing this more and more, I knew that I just had to paint it,
Yeah, that's
this
great.
summer. So.
And a still life. That's a little
Yeah.
different for you.
So, well, I've been doing a lot of still lives, and one of the things that's really interesting is that I'm noticing that still lives are very much like architecture. They have a lot of similarities. So, when the weather is not behaving and it's not possible to go out, I really like doing still lives.
That's great. All right. Now, oops, there we go. Another still life.
Yeah.
Alice Neal. I like that. Is she an inspiration to you?
Yes, very much. Yeah.
And again, I love the white space, like along the stems of the flowers. It's so interesting to me.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. Is that? Whoa. Is that the last? That's our last one.
I think that's the last
That's
one.
our last one.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you. Our time is just about right. We're going to have questions and answers later for
Okay.
those of you listening. So again, Susan, thank you. It was a wonderful interview. I love your artwork. And we'll see you later for questions and answers.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay.